Patty.
Hi.
I'm Adam with Lawrence Transit. Um,
Hi.
we set up these virtual meetings without any presentation necessarily, but happy to answer questions or look at anything with you.
Yeah, I had a stroke last fall and I can't drive.
Okay. Oh,
So
okay.
so I've gotten to know the bus transit in
Okay.
Lawrence.
Yep.
Um and so you guys are also proposing to have a hub here in downtown.
Yeah, so we already do. We just don't really have amenities. So
Yeah,
the
yeah.
five
The Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that the five routes that go downtown are planned to remain, and so we're trying to figure out a way to get some weather protection, seating, better bus bays, that type of stuff.
Does that Are you talking to the 7th and Vermont area where the buses are?
So we're going through kind of a series of steps for this site selection process. So that area is within the boundary that we're looking at, um, but the boundary more or less extends from 6th Street to 11th Street, north to south, and then east to west. Um, it goes over as far as Tennessee and over to just a little past New Hampshire,
Yeah,
um, east west. So kind of we're looking at that whole area and trying to figure out what are the options that would work for people.
gotcha. Well, I live in East, so New
Okay.
Hampshire is certainly closer than Vermont.
Okay.
I don't mind the walk from my place, and I live at 8th in New York, but on hot days like yesterday or today,
Yeah.
that gets to be quite a hike for me.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and so yeah, so sure, New Hampshire would be better.
Okay.
And I know we have a stop right here on 8th Street, but I don't even know where it goes and back.
Yeah. The one on, are you talking the one on 8th that's up close to the Penn Street lofts,
Yes,
the
yeah,
shelter? Yeah. So that's a route 7 stop. So that
hmm,
stop, there's one across the street as well. So there's 2 stops there.
yeah.
Um, so the one across the street, I guess on the north side of 8th would um, take you downtown where the rest of the buses are.
Ah,
And then the one right in front of the Penn Street lofts heads uh, out to Haskell Avenue. Um, it touches Lawrence High School, goes all the way to South Iowa,
ah.
Checkers, all of those type of places.
That's good to know. I will This is probably not on topic, but I have a very hard time figuring out the the whole navigation of what bus should I be at what time.
Okay.
And
Yep.
I found that instead of using the app, it's easier for me to use Google actually.
Yep.
But
Yep.
like I go to the hospital a lot, and sometimes it's really I'm still bewildered. Okay, now how does it work to go home? I know how to get there.
Yep.
Um and I can't I I know that I'm not the only person that's a little bit, I can't follow the booklet at all. So
Okay.
I
Yep.
guess just and again, it may be off topic, but I would definitely try to make things a little easier some way for people to figure it out.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Yeah, there's kind of we try to do it a few different ways because we know people kind of learn or soak things in differently. Um, that for some people that the ride guide booklet is the most important thing they can use, and for others it doesn't work as well. Um, I think Google's a good option. Have you have you tried the Transit app as well? It's just called Transit.
Yeah, I haven't done that one for a couple since beginning year, so I
Okay.
should probably check it out. But yeah, Google is probably my for me personally better.
Yeah. The other thing we found out is once people kind of get their typical trips, they hardly use
Mhm.
anything anymore. They kind of know where to go and
Yeah,
what to do once they find, okay,
I
this is how I
see.
get to the hospital and the grocery store and work or the different places they try to go. Um,
Right.
we do
Yeah,
have we do have, if you're interested, personalized travel training as well. So there's a staff member who helps individuals or groups of people um, figure out how to use the bus to get where they're trying to go. Um,
that
and
would
so,
help me.
so yeah, that's an option.
It's
Um,
hard. One of my issues is I have short-term memory issues, so
mhm.
while I'm traveling, sometimes I get confused. So
Yeah, yeah,
if I
yeah,
if I have someone help me and I make some notes and keep the notes with me, that probably would make better for me.
yeah. That might be a good option. Do you use email? Is that something you use?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So
Just
if you email our standard email address, which is info@lawrencetransit.org,
mhm,
and just ask about travel training. Um,
okay,
Dre Taylor on our staff is the person who does that, so he would be
okay.
able to reach out to you and figure out kind of
Okay.
what sort of training would work best.
Thanks. And that's Trey is the name of
Dre, DRE. Yeah,
DER. Got it. Okay.
yeah,
Thank you for that. That will help me
yeah.
a lot. Now, how can I help you with the other questions that and information you want to know about
Well,
citizen?
I guess are you on a computer and could see if I screen share some images?
Yeah, I should be able to see it right here, and if
Okay.
I can't, I can put on my laptop.
So I'll show you a couple of things. We have two different surveys out right now. Um, so we are asking people about a couple of different things. And that's one
Okay.
of the reasons we tried to add this virtual option, is because there's kind of a lot to talk about.
Okay.
um, so are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So the kind of gray or black shaded area is the um, boundary that we are looking in for improvements to that downtown station. Um, and so all the different pins on here are from the first step of our process. People were leaving us comments about, do we want this boundary to be bigger or smaller? Um, it's been voted on by City Commission at this point. So we are looking for site improvement options within this area.
Hmm. Okay.
So one of the questions we're asking people over the next 6 or 7 weeks is, do you have specific site ideas that you think would be a good spot for the improvements that we're looking at? Um, so we heard different things through this first part of the process of, some people desiring it to be close to its existing location, um, others hoping it was located maybe closer to places they like to go to and from in the downtown area. So, kind
Mhm.
of like you mentioned, living on the east side, just to shorten the walking distance, it could help you if it was, um, closer to the east side of this boundary than the west, for example.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so that would be one thing. If you had any specific ideas of, boy, I wish those 5 buses did their layover at this location rather than where it currently is at, we could take that feedback and record it.
Yeah. I I guess the strong part about Vermont and where it is now is that everyone kind of knows that, and
Hmm.
seems to. I know that some people use the across the street to get breakfast and things like that, and of course the library is right there. So
Yeah.
I get why that is a nice place, and having more, amenities would be good. But I also really feel like I'm trying to think on New Hampshire, like, um, oh, where that could be. And course, I think about the empty, sadly abandoned building on 7th in New Hampshire, maybe
Yep.
that area.
Yeah, the old Borders location.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, and that one has definitely been brought up. That'll be one that I'm sure we will look at. Um,
yeah.
and that might be a good segue. I'll give you a little context of the kind of the other half of feedback we're trying to get is
Okay.
so for any site that folks tell us they think would be a good site um, to consider, we have to have some way to evaluate those sites.
Hmm.
Um, we need some scoring model or something that helps us kind of rank or figure out which sites are more feasible than others. So we have, like I mentioned, 2 surveys out right now. Uh, one of them, like I mentioned, is just tell us exactly what site you think would be a good one. The other survey is about site selection criteria.
Hmm.
So there are, maybe I'll actually bring up this presentation, which might be simpler. There are, and I'm sorry, that's probably pretty small. I can zoom in. There are 14 different elements that we think would be a good things to measure for any site idea
Okay.
that comes across the plate. So
Hmm.
if someone says that Borders building looks like a great idea, we we would go down this list and assign um, a score on all these different considerations. So
Okay.
an
Yeah.
obvious one would be, it any site that's recommended, it must be big enough for 5 buses to safely move in and out of that space. Um, we're likely to get some recommendations of sites that are just a little too constrained to be practical.
Right.
Um, the one that would come up in the case of Borders is we have a criteria about is this site on city-owned land or not. Um, in that case, it is private property.
Ah,
So that does not preclude us being able to develop on there, but it would be important that the private property owner would be willing to sell to the city. Um,
yeah.
and if so, at what price? Because the um,
Yeah.
transit project doesn't have any additional funds for purchase of property, but
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
the city commission decided it was, a good enough spot, they could potentially find a way to fund that. Um,
Sure.
so that
Yeah.
so there's a whole bunch of other things we're looking at. People in the last process a few years ago were very worried about parking spaces lost
Yeah.
if we were to take over a parking lot or something similar. Um, and there's a host of other different things we think we should measure with any site idea.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
so part of this process is we're also asking people, have we missed anything? Should we be measuring something additionally than these 14 criteria?
Mhm.
Um, uh, or should we change, the way this is set up? I like the criteria about park space, for example, but I think you should change it to X.
Yeah.
So to a certain degree, this is kind of dense information, but we are trying to make it clear how we're going to try to make this decision.
Yeah, you got a lot of variables that have to be dealt with, and it
Yeah,
has to be
yeah,
financial, make sense
right.
to, just my own probably education thought about the border site is that I would think that whoever or group owns it, I would think that having selling it as opposed to it being empty and not getting any money from it would be something that they'd be motivated. But then again, I don't know, um,
Yeah,
and that's just
yeah,
something that has to be, looked at if you're going to take any steps with that. Definitely.
right.
You know,
Yeah,
how 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 about where the I know that they're gonna be working on Sixth, but
hmm
down by the city building, but more like the hotel there and that big parking lot there on Row
yes,
Island. I don't
yeah.
know
So
if any of those places are city or not.
right, yeah. So that's definitely an area. The riverfront parking garage is city owned, and we've already had some comments about that being a good place to look at. Um, the way, we tried to be sensitive about the edges of the boundary and kind of where we would and would not consider um, this type of bus activity. So on Rhode Island, um, we basically say we won't do anything on the east side of that street because there's homes right there.
Oh,
Um,
sure.
we
Yeah.
could potentially consider there's the parking garage and there's another city-owned lot nearby, um, but we'd want to figure out that side will be a little tricky trying to figure out entrance and exit, um,
Yeah.
to not
Yeah.
be kind of right in front of single-family homes.
Sure.
But certainly a site that's come up and will definitely be looked at.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, no, that makes sense. That you guys don't have an easy task here.
Be
Um,
threading a needle. Yep. And
Definitely.
Teresa, I saw you come in just to uh, orient you a bit. I on these virtual type meetings, I I tend not to have like a formal presentation, but I'm happy to answer questions or look at anything like I've been doing here with a couple minutes with Patty. So you're welcome to jump in with questions or give me an idea of what you're interested in.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So yes, Patty, both those ideas you brought up are good ones, and other people have noted that as well. So I think those are in line to get a review.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know how it would also be to just take the Vermont site and add um more amenities, with it, if it's a feasible site as well.
Yeah, and that'll be that site will certainly be has already been uh, recommended as a site to evaluate. So we'll have to take a look at that as well. It's yeah, have to see how the puzzle pieces come together. It's been
Sure.
a little bit of a tricky site, um, just with the AT&T building like right up on the sidewalk, um,
Yeah.
and the turning movements kind of in and out of the parking garage complicate things. but
Yeah, they
um,
do. Yeah.
but I think based on the number of riders in particular that told us they'd be interested in it um, remaining there, I think we'll have to take a hard look at it and figure out, could we squeeze in the types of amenities to make it more comfortable?
Yeah, yeah. And that's makes sense. I can understand that for
Yeah,
sure. Yeah,
I would imagine. Yeah, I would imagine. I mean, we'll have to kind of see. We're not diving into design work necessarily in this part of the process, but I would imagine the small city parking lot right at the corner of 8th in Vermont,
yeah,
that if we remained in that area, that parking lot would have to, um, provide some space for some of those amenities that we're looking at, some
sure,
weather
sure,
canopies and seating and a driver restroom and things like that.
sure, sure. Yeah. Okay. Um, well, nothing else. I don't know if this is kind of off a little bit, but I don't know if there's any spaces like over by 11th and Mass, kind of by the next to the bagel place. There's that lot, and I don't know if that's already using, because it seems like people that have, things to do with the county and that type of thing. It'd be nice to have a place right there to go.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that there's a couple areas down here that I know have already been proposed and will be evaluated. One of them is the,
Oh, I see.
as you mentioned, the parking lot next to the Douglas County Law Enforcement Center.
Yeah.
It's definitely a big space that's already paved. It's another one of those properties that the city does not own, so we'd have to um,
Gotcha.
talk with the county and decide or understand from them what their willingness might be um, to touch base about transit operations in that area. There's also a parking lot by the community building, kind of in that 11th and Mass area that has been brought up.
Yeah.
One of our criteria considerations, or something that we'll look at with any site idea, is the impact of downtown events and parades.
Sure.
And so sites in this area might be tricky with just how many times Mass Street is closed right there at South Park.
That's true. Yeah.
And trying to think about how we get buses in and out still, but that's not a off the table thing. It's just one of those things we have to think about long term.
Okay. Yeah, that all makes sense. Yeah, well, I don't think I have any more places I would recommend. Is there anything else that would be important that you're
Um,
looking for?
well, I'll provide a little bit of timeline just so you kind of understand the process. I guess I will encourage, if just for your knowledge, on our lawrencetransit.org website, everything about the downtown station project is kept updated there.
Uh-huh.
And so there's a whole section of timeline, kind of
I see that.
what things are we currently working on and where are we headed. So as a general note, there's a steering committee that's helping digest all of this public information that we're getting, and that group will help this fall. We're looking at October for them
Mm-hmm.
to come to a recommendation for 3 to 5 sites that we would do design work on,
Mm-hmm.
with the hope that in 2025 we're constructing those improvements.
Great.
So
Great.
that's the general timeline. So there will be more, opportunities for the public to see kind of what sites are starting to rise to the top as we get into September, October, I would say.
Well, good. Good. I'm glad to know that. That sounds like we've kind of, I feel a lot better, more educated about what's going on, and also appreciate the help for me personally to get a little
Yeah,
help with the training. So, yeah,
yeah.
thank
Happy to,
you.
help with both. Yeah, and I appreciate you joining to learn a little bit and give some feedback. That's helpful as we try to
Absolutely.
figure out how to make this all work a little better.
Yeah, no, that's great. I greatly appreciate it. So, it seems definitely getting the feedback from the residents is always a good idea.
Yeah,
So,
trying to do it in
okay.
a lot of different ways too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Okay. All right. All
all
right. Well,
right.
I'm gonna let you go. I know there's another person
Okay.
on there, so I'll let you guys talk. Thank you.
Okay. I appreciate it, Patty. Take care.
Take care.
All right, Teresa. So I don't know how much that was helpful or what you'd like to touch base on.
It was very helpful.
Okay.
I don't really have any comments. I actually signed in to kind of hear the
Okay.
consensus or what's being said and to see a
Okay.
little bit about what you're talking about. Um,
Okay.
but I really appreciate you just showing the timeline on the transit site, and I'll take a look at that too.
Yep. Okay. Are you someone who rides, or do you live in the downtown area,
I'm
or any?
thinking about riding.
Okay.
I'm 65,
Okay.
and uh, it would be helpful. I live in the north part of Lawrence, North Lawrence.
Okay.
Um, but I think the thing, to be real honest, that has kind of bothered me is we're currently, the station is near the library.
Hmm.
It seems like there's just been so many issues, and I know those won't go away necessarily if it's moved from there, but because that place um, caters to all of the community, older people, younger kids, everybody. Um, it'd be nice to have things a little calmer there in front.
Hmm.
And I'm not blaming the transit on that necessarily. It's just, it seems like it's a concentrated area of people waiting for the buses that then creates a little chaos. And it'd be nice to have it a little calmer there.
Okay.
Uh, and again, I'm not blaming the transit system. I'm not even blaming the homeless. It's just, it seems like that area is just real congested uh, because of where it is. And I mean, the senior center's near there, the fire department station is near there, the library's there, a couple of other businesses on the east side of the street. And it just seems like it's a really kind of congested area in general. And then to have the transit, you know, uh, stop there is seems to add to some of the chaos.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, we're um, yeah, trying to do what we can in that area to make it feel safe and clean and all those things we want,
Sure.
anybody getting on the bus to feel. But definitely hear that concern. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think the new transit hub out on 15th, or is that what they still call it?
Yeah.
I can't even
Well, Bob
remember.
Billings now, I
Yeah,
guess,
yeah,
but
Bob
yeah.
Billings.
Yep.
I think that's wonderful. And I think that was a great place to put that. I don't know that I ever would have even thought of that spot, but it seems to be a perfect place. And and I'm real proud of how our transit system has really grown in the last 5 or 6 years and really improved on its services. And so I think what you're doing's going the right direction.
Appreciate that. Yeah, and we're trying to um, duplicate some of the um, amenities here at Central Station downtown. So some of the
Sure.
canopies and bus bays that are, you always know where Route One's going to be, that sort of thing.
Right.
Um, so hopefully we can make that happen and make that a place to be proud of as well in that area.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be tricky. I mean,
Yeah.
because of the physical restraints and the fact that there's established, buildings and it's our
Yes.
downtown area, it's going to be tricky, but it looks like you guys are really looking carefully into it, and that's important.
We are trying to spend some time on this. Yeah, we
Sure.
don't want to rush it this time around. We want it to feel
Right.
like everything's been evaluated so that we can feel good about whatever direction it
Right.
ends up going.
Well, I appreciate it, and I'm probably going to pop out here in a minute. I need to
Okay.
eat some lunch, but
Yep.
I hope you get more people participating and sharing their ideas or their thoughts about the whole thing. And I
Yeah.
wish you guys the best of luck with this.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. If you are interested, because I know you mentioned you might ride, I'll just point out uh, our website is on or our email address is on the website.
Okay.
We do have a travel training program where we've got a staff person who can help people who are interested in riding try it for
Oh,
the first
okay.
time. So if you're interested in that, you can just email us and ask
Okay.
for more info, and we can get a person on our staff to help.
Okay. Thank you very
Um,
much.
but yeah, appreciate you joining today.
Okay. You too. Have a good afternoon.
All right, you as well.